Okay, let's dive right in. Picture this.
Yeah.
You're in your 40s, maybe finding yourself single again, or perhaps you've been out of the dating scene for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And stepping back into it,
Yeah.
it just feels different, right? The whole landscape seems to have shifted.
It really has, yeah.
Suddenly there are all these apps and, the ways we maybe used to meet people just aren't the main thing anymore. It leaves you wondering, like a lot of people, I bet, okay, where do I even begin?
That's such a common feeling. Absolutely. This stage of life, it brings a totally unique perspective to dating. And it's completely normal to feel like you're navigating new territory.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, that's exactly what we're digging into. Dating after 40. We've looked at advice from relationship experts, the gurus, And
Yeah.
we've also explored some real honest conversations from people actually going through it right now.
Getting both sides, the theory and the practice.
Right. Our mission here is really to pull out the practical stuff, the insights, maybe even a few things that might surprise you. Stuff that makes this whole experience feel less intimidating.
Less daunting, yeah.
Yeah, and more like maybe an exciting new chapter.
Yeah.
We want you to walk away feeling clear, feeling empowered, and definitely not, buried under a mountain of information.
And what's really interesting right from the start is that the experts we looked at, they actually point to some pretty significant advantages of dating in your 40s. It's not all about starting over from scratch.
Oh, really? That's good to hear. Because sometimes it feels like all the dating advice is aimed at, people in their 20s. So
Yeah.
what are these advantages we supposedly have?
Well, according to the relationship folks we studied, you likely bring a ton of experience and self-knowledge to the game. They use words like braver, smarter, wiser, even more discerning than your younger self.
Hmm.
Think about it. You've probably handled major life stuff, career changes, maybe kids. Those experiences, they build resilience, right? And a stronger sense of who you are.
Okay, yeah.
And that translates into being more, maybe assertive and confident when you're dating. You've probably learned a few things about what really matters to you in a partner and what you definitely don't want.
That definitely hits home for me. I mean, I have a much clearer picture now of my priorities, what I actually need in a relationship, compared to when I was, say, 25.
Yeah.
So how does this self-awareness, how does it actually help when you're dating?
Well, it lets you be way more intentional with your choices. You're probably less likely to invest time and energy in situations that deep down you kind of know aren't going to work long term.
Right. Avoid repeating mistakes.
Exactly. You can approach finding someone with a clearer idea of your needs, your values, and that can lead to more, productive interactions and honestly, maybe even make it more fun.
Fun. Okay, that's a word you don't always associate with dating, especially later in life. What about past relationships, though? You can't just pretend they didn't happen, good or bad.
Oh, absolutely not. And the experts really stress this. Those past experiences, even breakups or divorce, they offer huge lessons. Taking time to reflect, really think about what worked and maybe more importantly, what didn't work before. That's critical.
Hmm.
It helps you spot your own patterns, understand your part in things, and just get clear on what you're actually looking for this time. It's like R&D for your next relationship.
R&D, I like that. So instead of seeing a past relationship as just like a failure, is more about mining it for insights to help you make better choices going forward.
Precisely. And, if you look at the bigger picture, the stats on marriage and divorce are actually kind of interesting. While it might feel like divorce is super common, the rates have actually been trending downwards.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which could suggest maybe that the dating pool now has more people who are really intentionally looking for serious, lasting commitment.
Okay, that's potentially encouraging. So we're older, hopefully a bit wiser, maybe the dating pool's a bit more serious, but the big practical question is still, how do we actually meet these people? The old ways might not feel quite right anymore.
Yeah, and that's where being open to new things is really key. Experts really push being open to different ways of meeting people, even if they feel, totally foreign. Dating apps are the obvious one, right?
Right, the elephant in the room.
Yeah, and they can seem overwhelming, but they do offer a wide net. But also just being open to striking up conversations in real life, coffee shop, hobbies, whatever. You shouldn't rule that out either. Don't let age become this artificial barrier to how you connect.
Right, those apps can feel like a totally different planet if you didn't grow up swiping.
Mm-hmm.
It can be pretty intimidating just getting started.
It really can be. But, we saw this great little anecdote in the Reddit discussion we looked at. Someone, I think they were in their 60s, actually found a really meaningful relationship through Facebook dating.
Wow, Facebook dating, okay.
Yeah. It just goes to show connections can pop up in really unexpected places, maybe platforms you wouldn't even think of for dating.
That's a fantastic reminder to keep an open mind.
Yeah.
Don't write anything off too soon.
Yeah.
Facebook dating in your 60s, amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're being open, meeting people in new ways,
Mm-hmm.
but once we do connect, how do we choose wisely? Time feels, well, more precious now.
That's such a critical point. Being intentional about who you invest your time and, frankly, your energy in is so important in your 40s. The advice we saw consistently was, don't rush into serious relationships.
Do you slow down?
Yeah, build a friendship first. Experts really recommend establishing that foundation. It lets you see who the person really is, without all the pressure of immediate romance.
Friendship first, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Takes the pressure off, gives you a clearer look at the person beyond just that initial spark.
Yeah.
How long, though? Like, how long should that friendship phase realistically last if you're dating with, romantic potential?
That's a really good question, and there's no single answer, right? The focus isn't on a specific number of weeks or months. It's more about genuinely getting to know them.
Right.
Observing how they treat you, how they treat others, seeing if your core values actually line up. It's about giving enough time for the real person to show up beyond that initial, best foot forward dating version.
Okay.
And alongside that, it's really important to have a clear dating agenda, as some experts call it.
A dating agenda. What does that mean?
Basically, knowing what you're actually looking for. Are you just wanting something casual right now? Or are you genuinely seeking a long-term committed partner? Being honest with yourself first and then being upfront with potential partners early on, that can save a lot of grief and wasted time later.
A dating agenda. I like that. Sounds proactive. And what about those non-negotiables? We all develop those, right?
Yeah.
Especially after a few relationship go-rounds.
Oh, absolutely. And the experts are really firm on this. Figure out your deal breakers, your absolute must-haves and cannot stands, and don't compromise on those core values just to impress someone or force a connection.
Mm-hmm. Even if it's tempting early on.
Especially then, because while, yeah, you need some flexibility in any relationship, bending on the really fundamental stuff, that usually leads to resentment down the line. It just doesn't work.
Okay, so we're meeting people, being intentional, upfront about our agenda, sticking to our values. What about the first date itself? That can be so nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Any key tips there?
Yeah, the main goal for date number 1, keep it light, keep it focused on just getting to know each other on a surface level,
Yeah.
explore common interests, see if the conversation flows naturally, just get a basic sense that there could be something more there. And experts strongly warn against oversharing negative stuff from the past.
The baggage dump.
Exactly. Or falling into what they call the TMI trap, too much information, revealing deeply personal or negative things way too soon.
The TMI trap?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely see how that would just kill the vibe on a first date.
Yeah.
Nobody wants the play-by-play of your last breakup right away.
Right. And also try to resist that urge to constantly seek validation from your date. Like, do you like me? Am I doing okay? Instead, the advice is simple. Focus on being the kind of person you'd want to date. Be positive, be engaged, be genuinely curious about the other person. Smile, be yourself, let things unfold.
Be the person you want to attract. That's just such solid advice, really, at any age.
Yeah.
Now, what about figuring out if both people are actually emotionally ready to date? That seems huge, especially when you've both likely got some history.
It is absolutely crucial. Experts hammer this home. Both people really need to have processed their previous major relationships before jumping into something new.
And how do you tell?
Well, one big red flag to watch for is if someone constantly talks badly about their ex. Like, just disparaging comments all the time.
Okay, yeah.
That could be a sign they haven't really moved on, they're still holding on to anger or resentment, or maybe they just tend to repeat negative patterns. It suggests they might not be in the right headspace for a healthy new start.
That's a really good point. Constant ex-bashing is definitely a warning sign. Okay, so we're navigating these early dates, but the whole dating world has changed too. What about things like social media or shifting gender roles? How do those play in?
Yeah, those are definitely big parts of the modern dating puzzle. When it comes to things like gender stereotypes, especially around money or traditional roles, well, it's very likely you and a potential partner might have different expectations.
Especially if you've both been independent for a while.
Exactly. So having open, honest conversations about those expectations early on is really vital. It helps avoid misunderstandings later.
Communication, again, seems to be the key word here. What about social media? People in their 40s seem all over the map with that.
Totally. You might date someone who shares everything online or someone who barely has a profile. So before you post anything about a new person, even just a photo together, You really need to have a chat and make sure they're cool with it. Don't assume, don't post too soon. It can make them feel really uncomfortable.
Good point. Digital etiquette is important. Now, going back to that life experience we talked about, what role does our gut instinct play in all this? We've presumably honed that over the years.
Your intuition, your gut feelings, they become incredibly valuable tools as you get older and gain more experience. Experts strongly say, trust those instincts.
Don't ignore the little alarms going off.
Don't ignore them, those feelings of unease, those little red flags. Pay attention. But at the same time, you have to be careful not to just project all your past negative experiences onto every new person.
Okay, so listen to your gut, but don't let old baggage make you unfairly judgmental.
Exactly. Try to approach each new person with an open mind. Be non-judgmental while still being discerning and listening to that inner voice. It's a balance.
It's a tricky balance, yeah. Now, you mentioned relationship science earlier. What can we learn from, say, the Gottman Institute's research about building good connections at this stage?
Yeah, the Gottman Institute's work is fascinating. They've done tons of research, and one of their key findings is what they call the magic relationship ratio.
Magic ratio. Sounds intriguing.
It's 5 to 1, meaning in healthy, stable relationships, there are at least 5 positive interactions for every 1 negative interaction, especially when you're dealing with conflict.
Wow, 5 positives for every negative. That's quite a difference. What counts as positive and negative in their book?
So the big negatives, they call them the 4 horsemen of the relationship apocalypse.
Ooh, dramatic.
Yeah, it's criticism like attacking your partner's character, not just their behavior. Contempt, which is acting superior, rolling your eyes, disrespect. Defensiveness, always seeing yourself as the victim. And stonewalling, just shutting down, withdrawing.
Okay, those sound pretty bad.
They're really damaging. Occasional anger, if it's expressed respectfully, isn't necessarily the end of the world. But those 4, toxic. On the flip side, positive interactions are things like showing genuine interest in what your partner thinks and feels, expressing sincere appreciation, finding common ground, showing empathy, saying sorry when you mess up, and even using humor to kind of lighten the mood during tense times.
So it's less about never disagreeing and more about how you handle disagreements and making sure there's this reservoir of goodwill and respect underneath it all.
Exactly. And they also talk about repair attempts. Those little things you do during an argument to try and de-escalate, to reconnect, like cracking a joke or touching their arm or saying, okay, let's take a break. Successful repairs are crucial to stop negativity from just taking over.
Repair attempts, okay.
And another big concept is love maps. Basically, how well do you know your partner's inner world? Their history, their hopes, their fears, what makes them tick. Having a detailed love map builds intimacy and helps you handle stress together much better.
Love maps. I like that image, really knowing the landscape of your partner's heart and mind. Okay, so we've talked about what to do. What about common mistakes? Are there typical pitfalls people in their 40s fall into when dating?
Yeah, drawing from a few different sources, one common thing, especially after a long relationship or marriage ends, is struggling to figure out who you are again as an individual.
Rediscovering your single self.
Right, you were part of a we for so long. Finding me again takes real time and effort. Another big pitfall is rushing into a new serious relationship too fast, almost trying to skip the dating part and jump straight to commitment.
Trying to fast-track intimacy.
Exactly. And ironically, that rush often ends up just prolonging the search for someone truly compatible because you might pick wrong or skip important steps.
But that makes total sense. Trying to force a deep connection before you're both ready or before you really know each other, it can lead you right back to old patterns or settling for someone who isn't really right. And this loops right back to that advice about building friendship first, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Taking that time to build a real connection based on respect and understanding before you slap a serious label on it, that dramatically boosts your chances of long-term happiness.
Okay, so we've touched on the science. Let's shift gears slightly. What about a faith perspective? We look at some insights from Timothy Keller on marriage. How might his ideas be relevant for people dating in their 40s, maybe hoping for a deep commitment?
Yeah, Keller talks about marriage as a covenant, which is, more than just a contract or romantic feelings. It's this deep binding promise.
Okay.
And that commitment creates a really safe space for trust, for vulnerability, for real intimacy to grow. He also uses this beautiful phrase describing marriage as a friendship with a mission.
Friendship with a mission. What's the mission?
The shared mission is mutual spiritual growth. helping each other become, better, more complete people, supporting each other on that journey.
That adds a really interesting layer to partnership, doesn't it? Beyond just companionship, does he offer practical ways to sort of live that out?
He does. He emphasizes three key things: always speaking the truth to each other, but doing it with love and grace. Actively showing love in your spouse's specific love language. Understanding how they feel loved, whether it's words or acts of service or quality time.
Right, the 5 love languages.
Exactly. And third, extending grace through practicing repentance, forgiveness, and reconciliation when you inevitably mess up or have conflict. He also talks about the unique, sometimes challenging, but ultimately enriching dynamic of loving someone of the opposite gender. For people dating with marriage as a goal, thinking about these ideas, covenant, shared mission, intentional love, can provide a really valuable framework.
Love languages, that's such a well-known concept, and it really underlines how important it is to know how your specific partner gives and receives love. And this idea of marriage being a catalyst for growth, how does that actually play out?
Well, reflecting on Keller's ideas and others, marriage often has this way of shining a spotlight on our own hidden flaws, things we might not have even seen in ourselves before.
How lovely.
Yeah. That initial intense in-love phase, the honeymoon period, it eventually fades, right? And you start seeing your partner more realistically, warts and all. But you also start seeing yourself more clearly. And that process, while sometimes uncomfortable, can be incredibly powerful for personal growth, or sanctification, as Keller might put it. You're confronted with your own stuff just as much as your partner's.
So marriage isn't just about finding the perfect person. It's maybe more about becoming a better person alongside another imperfect person.
That's a great way to put it. And that really highlights why covenant faithfulness is so important, that commitment to stick it out and work through the hard stuff together. Because you're so close in marriage, your spouse's perspective on you, it carries real weight. And learning to understand their love language and seeing their attempts to love you, even if it looks different from how you do it, that's vital for building something that lasts.
It really sounds like, whether you look at it scientifically or through a faith lens, the core ingredients are pretty similar. Strong communication, really understanding each other, and a deep commitment to being a team through thick and thin. Okay, let's swing back to the real-world experiences from that Reddit discussion. What were people actually saying about dating in their 40s?
It was definitely a mixed bag, especially regarding online dating, or OLD as they call it.
OLD. Right.
Some people had found real success, found great partners on apps like Bumble or Hinge, kind of like that Facebook dating story. But there were also a lot of shared frustrations.
Like what?
Things like getting really superficial interactions, people who only give one-word answers, a lot of disconnect between people just looking for casual hookups versus those wanting something serious. Ghosting came up too.
Yeah, the classic challenges of online dating.
Yeah.
So it can work, but you need to manage expectations and maybe have a thick skin. What advice did they offer for navigating it?
A big piece of advice was to think of the apps as just an introductory service. The goal should be to move from chatting online to actually meeting in person relatively quickly. The feeling was, you can only tell so much from texts. You need that face-to-face interaction to really see if there's chemistry, if there's a real vibe.
Get offline sooner rather than later.
Exactly. And another thing that got mentioned quite a bit was using meetup groups.
Oh, right. For hobbies and interests.
Yeah. As a way to meet people who like the same things you do, but in a much more relaxed, low-pressure environment. Even if dating isn't the main point of the group, you're connecting over shared interests.
Meetup groups. That sounds like a really great alternative, actually. A way to let connections happen more organically while you're just doing something you enjoy.
Totally. Although some people on Reddit did also say that meeting people in the wild, just out and about, can feel harder in your 40s. Social circles might be smaller. People are busier with work and family.
Life gets in the way.
Yeah. So the overall vibe seemed to be, go into dating with an open mind, keep your expectations realistic. It might take time. There will be bumps, and definitely trust your gut. Listen to that intuition.
Open mind, realistic expectations, trust your gut. That feels like a recurring theme, doesn't it? Solid advice across the board. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the single most important thing for someone in their 40s to take away, whether they're thinking about dating or already doing it?
I think the crucial thing to remember is that dating in your 40s, it's its own unique experience. It has challenges for sure, but it also has some really significant opportunities. And the biggest asset you bring, it's your life experience, your self-awareness, hopefully a clearer sense of what you want and need. That's incredibly valuable.
Absolutely. We are definitely not starting from square one.
Not at all. So the advice is really to approach dating with intention, keep working on that self-awareness, and stay open to all the different ways connections can happen now. Use the strategies we talked about, be discerning, keep first dates light, trust your gut, focus on those positive interactions.
So it's about using that hard-won experience wisely, but also being brave enough to embrace new ways of connecting and just being open to whatever might come next.
Exactly. That's the sweet spot.
Okay, this has been incredibly helpful, really insightful. So for you listening, as you think about or navigate this chapter, here's something to really chew on. How can your past experiences actually be your greatest strength moving forward in your romantic life? Maybe think about what's one specific red flag you absolutely won't ignore anymore? Or what's one positive quality you're going to actively, intentionally look for in a partner from now on? Just something to consider as you embrace whatever comes next.